If propaganda weren't enough, there was also the system of terror. The Gestapo had set up various headquarters around the country. The building that you see in this slide is Gestapo headquarters in Berlin on Prinz Albrechtstrasse. This had once been a palace of a Prince Albrecht. The SS and the Gestapo were given authority to locate and to ferret out enemies of the state, and to take whatever extraordinary measures were necessary to do so. And indeed, the concentration camps are really filled with political prisoners. That was their reason for existing, certainly for the first 5 years of the regime. Dachau was created for political prisoners, not for Jews. Now, if you happened to be a Jew as well as a political prisoner, it was clearly a double whammy for you. The Gestapo evolved a scientific system for this, determined that the best time to make arrests were after midnight, indeed between 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. People are more vulnerable. People go to a knock on the door and they're suddenly taken away. This served several purposes. It made the victim certainly feel far more vulnerable, being taken down at this time of the wee hours of the morning to Gestapo headquarters for questioning. But the Gestapo also learned that, that neighbors were willing to inform on neighbors. It wasn't necessary to have a vast police network. If one had a grudge against a neighbor, you know, perhaps they were partying late in the evening, or perhaps they had a dog that they weren't controlling and was barking at night, you might complain to the neighbor a number of times, and if there was no response, you might make an anonymous phone call to Gestapo headquarters. The neighbor would be dragged in for questioning, questioning about unsocial behavior. You know, not about partying and not about dogs barking, but unsocial behavior. Now, the Gestapo discovered that there were brave people, people willing to risk everything, even throw away their lives to express opposition to the regime. Now, of course, such acts of opposition were never represented in the press. They never would be. They were never mentioned on the radio. And so you have to say what was accomplished by this person giving up either his freedom or his life. But there were people who would do this, and the Gestapo was aware of this. People who were quite courageous, and their numbers were really not all that small. So the Gestapo introduced a practice called Zippenhaft. Zippenhaft basically translates as the detention of kin. And so not only would they arrest you, but they would arrest, for example, your parents, or your children, or your husband or your wife, possibly other relatives, and maybe even going beyond kin to some of your best friends. And so they knew that people were willing, brave people were willing to risk their own lives, but not so many were willing to see their husband or their wife or their parents or children arrested. So this system of terror was certainly in place.